How you doing? And welcome to my analysis of the prop performances from a small segment of the game between Poland and South Africa that happened recently at the end of November. The game played in the memory of Poland player number 39, Stephen Collier. Um, Before I go into the analysis, there's a couple of things I want to say. First of all, the footage that you're about to see is from the excellent Bar TV. Now, for any of you who've been a member of Rugby League Coach for a while, you will see on the website there's a lot of videos there from Bar TV. I'll even put their link here in the video. The the footage they produce and the commentary they bring, excellent. I've commentated and analysed with them before. They covered the Emerging Nations World Cup in 2018. They always do a fantastic job, and they always said to me, as long as I give them a good shout out and acknowledge them, then we can fire away. So here's my acknowledgement to them. Secondly, I was the Poland coach, so some of the things I'm going to say in and around this are quite hard to say because all these players mean an awful lot to me as well from my time as Poland coach. But I'm going to try and be as straight down the line as I can. How about I share my screen? Okay, you should be able to see South Africa in the green and white on the right and Poland on in the white and red on the left. Now, this video, we're going to watch it twice. We're going to watch it from an offensive point of view, first of all, both teams, and then a defensive point of view, both teams. What I've also done is I've tried to mix in the South African and Polish performances so that we're not looking at one team at any one point. So for now, I want you to look at anybody who's attacking. So not South Africa, not Poland at any particular point, just the team that is attacking. And of course, it's South Africa right now. And the first thing I want to do is look at decoy runs or option runs. And what I did find in this game, so the period of the game that we're looking at is around about the 20 to the 30-minute mark of the first half. So a couple of interchanges have happened, but also tiredness is creeping into those who've started. But one thing I did find is it was an excellent attempt, an excellent endeavour at running off the ball. Look at number 13 here. I know he's not a prop, but one of the reasons that I've overlapped some of the locks into this is sometimes they do move into the front row. Other times they just play as quite a direct runner anyway. That is actually a really good decoy run in the sense that he was really flat with the play the ball and the hooker when he passed it. So in theory, he could have been taking the ball. If we're going to be ultra critical, because what you've got to do on an option run is make the defense think that you are getting the ball. He did pull up a little bit too early, so it was probably quite clear that it was only a decoy run rather than an option run. The key difference between option run and decoy run is option, you need to be an option. Second thing is if it's a decoy, you're clearly never going to get the ball. Now, look at number 10 here on that very subject. He's actually going to run into a space. So in theory, he's expended a lot of energy and not produced anything. He's also, as you look at this paused tape here, he's never going to receive that ball, is he? So he's actually wasted his energy. So his endeavour is there, his desire to do something is there. However, he's not actually producing anything. Watch. He doesn't actually hold anybody up at all. He runs into a gap. What he should have actually been doing is asking for the ball, because look at that space that he's got in front of him. And the fullback is a good indicator because the fullback just completely ignored him. We've now got the Polish one. This is James Usher, who's playing his last ever game of rugby league. And therefore, we've got to bear in mind that all these players are part-timers. James himself hadn't played for 2 years. So this is obviously an analysis that you can use in the community game as much as you want, and some of the lower end, higher professional stuff, lower end professional stuff. James is going through the motions here a little bit, to be fair. He's just doing a run because he knows he should do a run. What actually impressed me with James, though, is that the more I watch the game, is you can tell he's played the game for a long time and very experienced. He was always doing work off the ball, and this is despite the fact he's probably been sat on his backside and not training for 2 years with a rugby league team. There was also another little decoy run there. I call it a decoy because I'm not convinced that he was ever going to get the ball. So sorry for showing you a bit too much of South Africa again then. But look, we've got a second one here now. That is actually timed a lot better. The difference is it's that far back from the attacking line. I'm not 100% sure it's had an impact on the defence. To be fair, it did have a tiny impact. That defender just checked a little bit. So they're the kind of option runs you need to be having. Only Poland know whether he was an option or not at any point. And this just shows you the amount of work that goes into being a front rower, even though you've not got the ball. You're expected to turn up for these assignments all the time. This one from the man of the match for Poland, I'm not so sure that he got this one right. I think he's not that convincing. Also, the line of his run is probably going straight back into the markers. Didn't really hold the defender up. Nine was able to check away from him. And you've also got to be careful with these lines that you don't end up turning it into a obstruction. Again, the middleman here just made the defenders check a little bit. So fair play to the man. I don't know who he is, actually. He's got a mullet. And he's done a really good job, or as good a job as you expect at this stage of the game. Looking at his number, he's come off the bench, and he should be a bit theorer in that sense. But the other thing is, he's also gone through the line, so he's really endeavouring to make an impact on the line rather than just going through the motions. James here actually been wise enough to turn his back. He definitely was an option. The defender checked, and he is also wise enough, if you watch, to get back involved in the game. Watch this. This is an old player who's playing his last game of rugby league. So when you talk about experienced props and the role they play, and he just showed again there. I mean, did it do anything to the defence? Probably not, but he knows instinctively, having played the game for so long, that he should be doing something there. The quality of it, debatable, but it's his last game ever. I'm not going to give him a roasting. I'm not going to give you a roasting, James. It's okay. So there we go. Now, there's no better sight than a front rower or a middle running off the back fence. Let's have a look at this. South Africa received the ball from the kickoff. Now, something that concerned me about some of the South African runs at this stage of the game was how they open their body up. Now, as you can see, this player isn't running directly at the line. So I'd like to see him sort of running directly at the line and maybe a bit of footwork. But it was clear through some parts of the game that South Africa were trying to wrap the ball across the field, if you like. So to move it across, to move it back to the middle, to make a decision. And this full set shows that. But you're not going to see it until we look at the defensive side of the ball. Because he's opened his body up like this, he leaves himself really susceptible to getting whacked. He leaves himself really susceptible to getting physically dominated in the collision because he's going into the line on a massive overs line, so he's opening his body up. And as a result, Poland get players into the tackle and it actually kills the momentum of the ruck. So it's not a bad outcome considering, but they'd put even more of a dent in the Polish line if they're a bit more direct, footwork, and then started to go across. But the fact that they went straight across probably didn't maximise it. Again, overs line again. And even though the outcome wasn't too bad that time, I still think it could have been improved. A lot of this is down to the fact that Poland weren't really controlling the rucks at all at this stage. I like to see big men coming one off the ruck. What I would prefer to see is if I think his number 10 brought somebody on the inside and his outside runner was a little bit tighter to him, so he was definitely an option. I guess, depending on the type of coach and depending on the kind of game plan you have, I always put the emphasis on both the runner and the option runners to communicate about who's doing what in and around that essence, in that area, sorry. So in essence, you wouldn't walk in a dodgy pub on your own, you'd bring two of your mates. So I would want number 10 to go, right, you're with me, let's go through. Unless, of course, it's part of a bigger picture. But I love his two-handed carry. I'll just try and knock it back a bit because I don't want to go back. Look at that. He's got a two-handed carry. He also threw in a tiny bit of a dummy. So in theory, this man could get the ball, and it just puts the Polish defenders on their heels. So I really like what he's done. If this runner was a little bit tighter, it would have had even more of an impact. But brilliant from that front rower. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, now we're going off the back fence again. It's almost absolutely a carbon copy, and it's almost a carbon copy collision too, in the sense that he got dominated. So these overs runs, I don't think are really going to propel South Africa to a better place. They're just lucky that Poland weren't really controlling the ruck. Again, the same thing there in the sense that they were trying to wrap across the field and then come back. And there's number 10 again, charging into the line. The difference is the Polish are a little bit wiser to it this time. And you've got to give the coaching staff credit for maybe fixing that as well. But the players pick up on things too. So the players would have realised in the last tackle, in the last set, he had the ball in two hands, but he didn't give it. And we're in the 20-something minute now of the game. So it's fair to assume that he's done this consistently throughout the game and he's not passed yet. So both Polish defenders went into him. And that's the cat and mouse that props play all the time. And we don't see it. We don't think about it when we're watching TV or game live. We think it's just up and down, up and down. It isn't. It's quite a nuanced position with a lot of skill involved. What was good about that is the way that there was option runners behind. The problem is the line of run from number 13. I know he's not a prop, but he's basically just ran into the markers there. So he's not really made any great meters. And there's some conjecture there about whether a penalty should have been given. Now, let's have a look at some Polish frontman play. Now, before we look at where the set's going or anything like that, what I want you to do is look at this run in context. And this is sometimes why you shouldn't send a front rower in after a couple of plays. So you don't know this, but we're actually a couple of plays into the set. I just want you to watch what the run from the Polish number 17 does. He's put his hand up to work, but he's ran an overs line again. So even though he doesn't get physically dominated, and he actually does okay, what he's actually done is allowed the South Africa defence to move across. So he's actually opened up their defence so that they can cover whatever Poland want to do a bit quicker, because it's pretty clear on this side that they're not going to come to the right. Now, poor James here, the retiree, he ends up with the ball. I'm not 100% convinced he should have ended up with this ball, but he did because he took it from a standing start. And he got creamed, basically. What he did do, though, is get some fantastic go forward based on the fact it came from a standing start. And the thing is, where somebody like James is a really good player, is that his leg drive. Do you see how he got from a standing start to that go forward? I mean, that's unbelievable, actually. So he's worked over the years on his leg drive. So that's really good from James. Either that or it was natural to him. But that just shows you how it can go wrong. And then we're back to the South African side, overs runs again, and look at the outcome. What I'm going to do now is switch to the defensive side. Okay, now what I want to do is start looking at the front rowers from a defensive standpoint. Now, I've got to laugh at this. There's a bit of a wrestle going on at the back here, so somebody's not sliding. But where South Africa probably had the edge over Poland is the way they slid in the middle defensively. So that's a fitness thing. That's also a system thing and whatnot. So I do like the fact that the first player catched. You know, if you've listened to me for a while, you know that I'm a fan of shoulder under the ball tackle, but I do understand players get coached to catch. And the defender caught him well. And then what happened is the middle came in to do what Des Hasley used to call a knowledgeable assist, which is find some real estate, find something on the player that you can do to control him and bring him to the floor. So the middlemen there did an all right job, and it's not been exposed. So kudos and credit there. Now, we're looking at the clip again, South African coming off the back fence. So we're looking at the impact of the South African front rower or middleman coming across the field and getting a reasonably quick play of the ball, even though he got smashed, basically. So that means we've got a problem somewhere in the Polish middle defensively. Now, 4 men have ended up involved in this tackle. Tynan there, the hooker, has got his chest in there. We've got a lock. I assume number 17 has come off the bench to play prop, and I think that's James getting involved there too. And they're in control of that, but the problem they have now is the way they unload. So that's great ruck control. I don't mind this fella getting off the back, that's fine. And then James has got back off, that's fine. But these two should have some semblance of control. Because Tynan went in with his chest. This is why I don't like chest contact. He's lost the collision. They've slid down his body and he's now on the ground. And there's no communication there in the marker area and in the ruck area. So they've all pretty much unloaded at the same time. And Tynan's still essentially a dead marine at the ruck. Number 17's jumped off quite quick. And James isn't even back in the line. And I guess it's half a job of ruck control. And this is what the middles have to play with constantly. And I'm going to run this tape on because there was actually a try that was a result of the work of the middle. Now, James only just got back to the line. I'm not sure what position this person is playing. We're still assuming this is a front row. And now we're starting to get some disorganisation in this Polish line. And we can start to see how the try may have resulted. The Polish middle has now gone across. Maybe he's playing lock, I don't know, but he's still in the middle. And again, there's a lack of ruck control. The set's moved on a little bit. This is the key thing. So the half does a +1 to our 10, who we saw before, but we're looking at the defensive side of the ball. So the collision isn't great. It's quite passive. A quick look up the Polish line shows you that they're a bit short at the top end as you go towards the word Southport in the advertising. Passive tackles from 2 middles there, albeit one is the hooker. Poor ruck control. But this is where your middle can get stuck. And sometimes we blame the prop or the lock for not getting there. But I think it was the preceding rooks that caused all sorts of problems. And if you get one wrong, you get two wrong and three wrong, it becomes a vicious cycle. And the left side there just basically overslid because they were trying to cover the space that they had. James has ended up, remember earlier in the set, James was on the left side of the field. He's now on the right. So it's clear to me that there's something not quite right in this Polish defence. Let's have a look, see what they fix. Collision's okay from both, but I guess, again, it's still too quick. So I guess what I'd be like to see happen, let me see if I can rewind this properly. No. Okay, right. Collision. Collision is the start of your ruck control. Good collision means you're going to have full control over that player. Now, not sure who this is here, but he's quite far away from the collision. But number 17 is in a great position where he can pin this guy to the ground and really keep him there. Now, from this position, I would expect Poland to be in complete control of this ruck. I know we're going away from props a little bit, but this is the middle of the field, so it does impact props. So a prop who's watching or a parent of a prop, these are all the things that matter. Now, because of this poor control being relatively quick, it's not a bad ruck, but it was still quick compared to where they were. They're still, even though they're in control, essentially, defensively, they're still on the back foot to an extent because they're not in as much control as they should be. Number 8 is James, and he's gone a bit passively there. And now the speed kicks up again. And a bit further in the set, you get some better collisions. And I would say that's a half-controlled set by Poland, by Poland's middle. So I think they've either the coaches intervened or they've learned under the sticks when they'd conceded a try. So even though they're controlling it to an extent, they could even control it much better because South Africa are still marching up the field. Okay, now we're looking at some South African defence. Remember, it's the same clip that we've seen, but we're looking at the men in green. Okay, I'm a bit concerned from the South African perspective about these spaces. So if Poland were to play a bit closer to the line and attack through, South Africa would be in some trouble. Also, it's pretty clear to me that South Africa have bunched a lot of men on the right side. So as we look at the screen, so this probably wasn't the play. But if we look at the defence, pretty good South Africa are getting in the face of Poland as much as they can. Collision's not bad at all, but instead of getting them away from the try line, they've actually brought the number 17 closer to the try line. And because the South Africa defence was moving sideways a lot because of the way they were structured, the middles have to work extra hard. So let's judge them on that. They're folding quite reasonably well. There's definitely some communication there. I don't think there's much joy to be had around there if you're a Polish player. Okay, now, this decision to come out the defensive line, it's a good job number 13 made it, but this is what I'm saying about the South African defence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 defenders just there, 9 in screen. That means if Poland would have shifted the ball, they were in real trouble. And because that was the play where James was stood still catching the ball because he probably wasn't meant to get it, South Africa have got out of jail there. I don't think number 13 had to jump out like that, but I know why he did it, because he was so overcrowded on the right-hand side. And that was good read, really, from number 13. Or is it? Because James was stood still, but he's ready and rushed out, so it's good from him. And what he has done is killed the situation, and he's given South Africa time to get their numbers back. So, yeah, I'm going to call it a good read from number 13, but to be honest, Poland didn't have things organised. Now, South Africa have a little bit of a problem there, the way they've unloaded. The ball's about to be played. I assume 2 middlemen there getting back, struggling to get back to the defensive line. So inconsistent ruck control there. Poland again defending. Good collision from the middle. No problems there. James folds into the line. That's good. A couple of other middles there doing some great work to ruck control. So what's evident from that little section of studying prop forwards is that their job in the middle of the field is quite nuanced and quite difficult. And you actually have to be a lot fitter than people give you credit for. You have to work on the ball, off the ball, do the tough carries that are uncompromising. And you have so much ruck control and ruck unload to be involved in. You get it wrong in that area, and faster men can expose you. So hopefully anybody watching that's picked up some tips, and also for coaches and players, that's the way to go. Fix that middle, and you get so much further in terms of controlling your defense. Hope you've enjoyed it. The next video in the next day or two will be about game management.